Hi, I'm Ashton. Excuse the bit of like weird lighting. The sun's coming through my blinds in an interesting way that I can't really change. So you saw the title, you know what's going on. I am filming this Sunday evening. This is just going to be a quick introduction, and then I will do mini vlog clips throughout the week, a couple updates, and then I will close you off with my final thoughts in exactly a week next Sunday, but perhaps Monday morning, depending on my reading habits, I suppose. We will see. So full disclosure and to give credit, this video was inspired by Ariel Bissett. I watched her video. I took a week off social media and I thought it was really interesting. Her style of like video is a bit different than mine. She just took a week off and then talked about all of her thoughts about it at the end of the week. I'll put that video in the first link down below. So ever since I saw that video, I was like, oh, I want to do that. But also that's difficult for me because I'm on social media a lot. I'm going to set rules for myself today, and me filming it is the only way that I know I will be able to do it. So that's what's going on. From the moment I wake up tomorrow morning to the moment I go to bed on Sunday next week, I will not be on social media. I will not use YouTube, I will not use Instagram, I will not use Snapchat. I don't really use Snapchat anyway. I will be on my email and I will allow myself to text. As for Twitter, I'm going to set a time limit on the Twitter app for 5 minutes a day. I do use Twitter to stay updated on important news things, and I also want to be able to use it right now to use the small audience that I have and signal those things. So, you know, I'll use Twitter for a very small amount of time per day, put all of those apps into a folder, shove it at the end of my phone screen. So that'll be fun and interesting. So now that you know my rules for myself, I'm going to tell you about the books that I am hoping to read. So in order of what I want to finish the most, I currently have the Dune audiobook checked out. It is 21 hours. Dune by Frank Herbert is like, you know, classic science fiction, and I'm not the biggest science fiction person, but I do like it. I really like Ender's Game, much to my personal dismay, because Orson Scott Card fucking sucks, but you know, I liked Ender's Game. I want to read Dune because my boyfriend likes it, and it's, you know, classic science fiction. I feel like it's something that most sci-fi people have read or like know the premise of. So I'm gonna read Dune. I will finish that this week. I also have checked out the book I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness by Austin Chang Brown. Outside of this like challenge where I'm not going on social media for a week, I've been reading about 2 books a week. So I'm Still Here and Dune are the 2 that I will finish this week. I'm saying that, speaking it into existence. So I'm going to read those 2, and then I also would love to read Beautiful Music for Ugly Children by Kristen Conn Mills. This is probably the most heavily requested trans book for me to do a trans book review on, so I will be marking this up. I've got post-it notes, and I will write notes on my phone as I usually do, and hopefully a bit after this week you will get a trans book review for this. So look forward to that if you're one of the people that has been asking for that. This is like YA fiction, realistic fiction, high school type book, so I'm looking forward to reading it. I have heard good things about it, but of course it is also a trans book written by a cis person, so we'll see how that goes. Next book after that I'm hoping to finish is Imperialism, The High Stage of Capitalism by Lenin. Not much to say about this pretty like integral work about leftist theory. This is shooting pretty high because that's already 4 books and Dune is very long, but Naomi Klein's Shock Doctrine, The Rise of Disaster Capitalism. I've read Naomi Klein before. I really liked Capitalism versus the Climate. I thought it was a really well done and very concise book about climate change and capitalism. Now, Capitalism versus the Climate did take me like a while to read, which is understandable. It's a thick book and the material is very heavy, and I'm assuming this will be like similarly heavy considering the topic. I'm excited to read it. I got it secondhand for $5 and it's supposed to be $36. According to the inside cover. So I'm hoping this will have a decent amount of information and I can get some sticky notes in here and use it for reference, as well as just, you know, a book that I've been wanting to read for a while. So that is 5 books. I would be very happy if I finished 5 books. That would be good. Now, another reason that I'm doing this challenge for myself is because I have so many ebooks right now that I need to read. I wasn't really an ebook reader up until this year when I got Libby, which is like a thing where you connect to your online library. It's an app on your phone. I would highly recommend it. So I have 7 ebooks downloaded to my computer, and I also, through my university, I have a bunch on a shelf that I want to read. I think like 17 or 18. So I'm just going to rapid fire through all the ones that I have downloaded and then the ones on my shelf through UNC. I don't know if I'll get to any of them. I would love to. I know I'm not going to read all of them, but hey, a man can dream. So downloaded onto my computer, I have Carmilla. It's one of the oldest vampire novels. I would love to do a video ranking all of the vampire novels I've read when I read a few more, but I've been wanting wanted to read Carmilla for a while. One of my friends recommended it to me, and it is like one of the oldest vampire novels, so I have to read it. I also have Police, a Field Guide by David Correa and Tyler Wall. I have Anti-Inauguration, Building Resistance in the Trump Era, which is like by 5 authors. One of them's Naomi Klein, so good for me. I have Policing the Planet, Why the Policing Crisis Led to Black Lives Matter, edited by Jordan T. Camp and Christina Heatherton. Tear Gas, From the Battlefields of World War I to the Streets of Today by Anna Feigenbaum. And of course, I have The End of Policing by Alexis Vitale and Who Do You Serve, Who Do You Protect, which is an anthology. A bunch of those books are currently free through Verso. I would recommend looking up Verso books, free ebooks, because you can download a bunch of them free. And even if you can't read them right away, like me, you can download them. And I, for one, am very excited to read some of those. I don't know how many of them will be this week, but The End of Policing is pretty high on my list, so we shall see. Okay, now on to my bookshelf on Proquest ebooks. These are books that I have online through my university's library system. Thank you to libraries. I love libraries. Said I might pick and choose from this shelf and the ones that I have downloaded, so I'm just gonna go through all of them and we'll see what I have, we'll see what happens. This is gonna be even more quick fire. Against the Fascist Creep by Alexander Reed Ross, Black Bloc White Riot, Anti-Globalization and the Genealogy of Dissent by A.K. Thompson, Captive Genders, Trans Embodiment in the Prison Industrial Complex, Freedom is a Constant Struggle, Ferguson Palestine and the Foundations of Movement by Angela Davis, Heavy Radicals, The FBI's Secret War on America's Maoists by Aaron J. Leonard and Connor A. Gallagher, Hegemony Hack 2, A Roadmap for Radicals by Jonathan Smucker, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney, Identity Poetics, Race, Class, and the Lesbian Feminist Roots of Queer Theory by Linda Garber, Properties Theft, which is a collection of Pierre Joseph Proudhon texts, Red Emma Speaks, an Emma Goldman reader by Alex Cates Schulman, The State and Revolution by Lenin, Story of Crass by George Berger, That's Revolting, Queer Strategies for Resisting Assimilation by Matilda Sycamore, Truth and Revolution, A History of the Sojourner Truth Organization 1969 to 1986 by John Bracey and Michael Staudenmayer, Undoing Gender by Judith Butler, and Writing Beyond Race, Living Theory and Practice by Bell Hooks. That's a lot of books. I know damn well I'm not going to get through all of them, but a man can dream. There's a ridiculously large catalog of books on Proquest that I really want to read. So yeah, those are the books that I absolutely know I will get through, and then a bunch that I might pick and choose from if I get through the 5 that I mentioned at the beginning. So we will see how this goes. I will see you throughout the vlog and then at my wrap up at the end of the week. See you then. I am 4 hours through Dune, which is about 20% of the way there. As much as I want to finish Dune, it's like fine, you know? It's just fine. It's not great. I'm not like super into it. I'm going to spend the rest of the day trying to read this. I'll probably finish it. That's the goal. I'm just gonna knock out this book today and then probably go back to Dune. It is done. I'm going to read a bit more of Dune. I would love to get to like 30%. That'd be great. And after that, I'm gonna head to bed. I have not recorded anything else today, but I am 69% of the way through Dune. Nice, I know. I'm actually starting to enjoy it. It took like 40-ish% of the way through for me to actually get into the story, but I am enjoying it, and with any luck, I will finish it tomorrow, which is only day 3 of my week. And I also would love to start Beautiful Music for Ugly Children tomorrow. That is the plan. I finished Dune. Only took me 3 days, so that's not bad. But I am now going to read Beautiful Music for Ugly Children for a while. I'm about halfway through. All of these marks are not positive. So if you want like a fucking ranty, not very positive trans book review, might be coming up. I did it. I finished it. That's 2 books today. I had a lot of mixed thoughts. It's only 4 p.m. and I've finished 2 books today, but I'm probably gonna get a start on Naomi Klein's Shock Doctrine. And we'll see how far I get on that. Maybe I will actually finish it by the end of the week. So this week I've finished the Lenin book on imperialism, Beautiful Music for Ugly Children, and Dune. So 3 books down in 3 days. So I read through the entirety of the first part of the Shock Doctrine, which is about 83 pages in a bit over an hour. Just as I predicted, this book is heavy. Not like physically, but like it's dense, and there's a lot of information that is both difficult to digest and like heart-wrenching. It's about 10:30 p.m. I don't think I'm gonna read any more of Shock Doctrine tonight. It's heavy. It's like a lot to digest, and I don't want to actually force myself to try to finish it this week if it's gonna be this difficult for me to read. But you know, I read for an hour while listening to some Riot Grrrl music, difficult stuff to get into your head. Naomi Klein books are hard-hitting from what I've read so far. So I think I'm gonna play some Stardew Valley, maybe listen to some more Riot Grrrl music, and go to bed. I just filmed myself getting ready with this style decision for a video that you'll see probably after this one. And this morning I read a bit more of I'm Still Here. I have, I think, about an hour left of it, audiobook-wise, which means about 30 minutes. So I'm gonna take my dog on a walk and listen to the audiobook, and hopefully by the time I get back from the walk, I will be done with that book as well. Do you wanna go on a walk? By the time I got home, I had finished the audiobook, so that is another book down. Really, the only thing that I didn't like was the religious angle that it took. I still thought it was pretty good as a memoir, and I enjoyed it. After my walk, I edited a couple videos, and then I started the audiobook for the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, which I've been wanting to read for a bit. It's a newer novel. I've heard some real mixed takes about it, but it seems interesting, and it's definitely like a unique premise for a story, and it's a vampire book, so probably get through a bit more of it tomorrow. I've only barely started, so I don't have that many thoughts yet, but for tonight, I'm going to read another part of the Shock Doctrine. It is already kind of late. I got off a pretty long Zoom call with some of my friends, but I'm going to see how far I can get through the second part of this book, and I guess I'll see you tomorrow morning. I am halfway through the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I've read 21 chapters, there are 42 chapters. I've just been playing some Animal Crossing and doing some digital art. The 21st chapter does end on like a bit of a cliffhanger, so I kind of want to read more, but I do want to take a break to finish the part of Shock Doctrine that I did not get to last night. I stopped maybe halfway through the second part. It was getting pretty late. So I'm 75% of the way through Southern Book Club's Guide. It's 3 a.m. I keep reading horrors and thrillers late into the night, and then I'm like, how am I supposed to go to sleep? I'm on a cliffhanger. They're about to get fucking eaten or whatever. And like, this happens all the time. Okay, this is not my first rodeo. I did finish the second part of the Shock Doctrine and got a little bit into the third part. Tomorrow I would love to get to the end of the fourth part. Tomorrow's my second to last day of this little challenge. I will for sure finish Southern Book Club tomorrow. I do have mixed feelings about it. A lot of the characters are difficult to like. The fact that it was written by a white man and includes both tensions between men and women and tensions between white and black people, it makes me uncomfortable because I feel like there are a lot of things he missed. I do think it is not great when it comes to a lot of social justice issues, but it's also set a long time ago, and I get that that's a part of developing the setting. Its plot, though, is pretty unique within what I've read, and I also do love when a book references other books that I've read, so points for that. But overall, it's not the best book I've ever read, but it does have me kind of hooked, which I don't want to admit, but it's true. So I'll finish that tomorrow and hopefully get through a bit more of Shock Doctrine as well. But for now, I've got to get to sleep. It's fucking 3 a.m. Someone tell me to please stop reading horror books at night. Oh my god. Today was actually relatively busy and I didn't read all that much. This morning I went on a really long walk with my mother and my dog to take him to get some blood work done. And then I picked up my boyfriend and we went to a small, like, local art sale. It was lovely. We were outside, we were wearing masks, it was all good. Watched a few episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender, swam in the pool, ate some cauliflower buffalo wings, and I just finished the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying a Vampire. Everything I said yesterday still applies. I thought the plot was interesting and pretty good, but the characters for me were difficult to like, and I am a really character-driven reader, so while I enjoyed the plot, I craved more from the characters, even though I know that's not always the point of a thriller or a horror book, but I did enjoy it. It was a fun romp. I also did finish the third part of Naomi Klein's Shock Doctrine. Tomorrow I would love to read 1 or 2 more parts of that, and I would also like to get through all of The End of Policing by Alex Vitale. I think I can do that tomorrow. We'll see. I'll keep you updated, and then at the end of tomorrow, I'll give you my final thoughts on this whole entire week. It's about 2 o'clock. I'm working my way through The End of Policing right now. I don't know if it's still free through Verso, but when I got it, it was a free ebook through Verso. Things I enjoy about reading ebooks, a lot of the times, especially with the political books I read, they have a lot of references in them. Like when there's a little superscript number in a
in a like physical book, you have to go to the back of the book and figure out that number, but in an ebook, you can just click on the number and it takes you to the resource. I also like that you can highlight and make notes without feeling bad about doing it in a physical book. You know, obviously it saves paper, so ebooks aren't perfect, but I do like them, and when they're free, even better. So yeah, I'm gonna keep going through the End of Policing. I'm hoping to finish it today. I finished the End of Policing. It was all right. I did expect more out of it, but I still think it's decent. It's really well organized and really well researched, but I do think on multiple elements of the things that it goes through, there could just be so much more. For me, it's a better like starting off point to begin discussions and begin conversations that I want to have with myself and with communities I'm in and all sorts of things, but not great for like learning. Like, I feel like I didn't learn much. I feel like a lot of this stuff in this book I already knew, but it is concise. It's got a lot of information in it, especially if you are new to being like anti-policing. I think the End of Policing is a good resource. Glad that I have it as an ebook because I definitely think I'll probably reference it in the future. The book is definitely very US centric, although it does talk about the systems within other countries. It's not so much anti-police as it is anti-American police, so it definitely struggles with that if you're looking for something that explains the problems with policing as a system and not just American policing as a system. I think it kind of fails in that regard. Vitale also uses some weird language. Transgendered is used once in the book, which I'm not a fan of. Also, within LGBT stuff in general, it wasn't a great book on that. I think he definitely could have and should have delved further into the intersectionality between different issues. He did focus on race a lot, which is completely justified because race and policing in the United States are inextricably linked. But on the chapter called Criminalizing Homelessness, he completely brushed over the fact that so many houseless people are LGBT, especially when it comes to youth. And I just think that's an issue that should be explored more. On top of that, he also calls mentally ill people PMI, like people with mental illnesses. I've never heard that acronym before. I don't think it's very widely used. I do think the book was structured very well. There are 10 chapters. Each of them deals with a different issue within American policing and provides a shit ton of resources on the issues with it now and attempted reforms versus what Vitale thinks reforms should be put in place. And I do appreciate that structure, but I also think that a lot of his proposed solutions do not go far enough. This is definitely a reformist book. This book is not about the end of policing. It's about the end of policing as we know it. So reading this as an anarcho-communist, I definitely disagree with a lot of the more like governmental solutions that Vitale proposes. It's very clear to me that this was not written by an anarchist, right? Even though it does talk about the policing of anarchists in the chapter about politicized policing. But you know, I'm bound to disagree with plenty of the solutions that he wants to put in place because his solutions require the government to stay intact. So I'm inevitably going to disagree with a lot of the solutions he proposes because I believe Alex S. Vitale is like a socialist, democratic socialist from what I can tell, and I am not. I'm excited to watch the video that the author of this book, Alex S. Vitale, did with ForHarriet, who's a YouTuber focused on Black feminism that I've talked about on this channel multiple times before. So that's probably the first thing I'm gonna do tomorrow is watch that video. I feel like I've talked more about this book than any of the other books I've read, but it's one that's been highly recommended in the wake of current events. I would say it's good to read if you're new to police abolition, and it provides a lot of interesting statistics, and I think it's a good resource for finding other resources, but a lot of times it doesn't go far enough in my opinion, and I think that it's a great starting resource. It is a good place, I think, for more liberal people to go, but if you're more like me and you've already read quite a bit on this, then you're probably a bit past this book, but it's a good one, I think, to recommend to more liberal people, and it's a good jumping off point for different conversations, especially with the chaptered structure of the book. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to people looking for a deeper analysis of policing as a whole. The title to me and the cover in general, which has a statement on it, is a little bit misleading. But yeah, I'd recommend it to some people, but not to everybody.
Good morning, it is Monday. It's done, isn't it? I did it. I went a week without social media, and I read a lot more than I normally would. I wrote down some of my thoughts along the way that I wanted to share with you, so that's what I'm going to do right after I do a brief overview of all of the books that I ended up finishing this week. If you follow me on Goodreads, you already know all this because I've been keeping that updated, but the first book that I finished was Imperialism, the Highest Stage of Capitalism by Lenin. It's over in the politics section of my bookshelf, so I'm not going to pull it out, but it's there, I finished it, I put in some sticky notes. I do think its scope is unfortunately limited due to the restrictions that were put on publishing during the time that it was written, but it is still a very relevant piece of media. It's pretty short, it's relatively accessible language-wise, it's not like it's Das Kapital. It's no secret that I'm less of an authoritarian than Lenin, but I'll probably reference it in the future, and I do want to read more Lenin. His work is pretty straightforward, and I enjoyed it. After that, I finished Dune by Frank Herbert. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would, and I'm glad that I read it. I'm probably going to take a bit of a sci-fi break because sci-fi is not my favorite genre, and Dune was long. After that, I read Beautiful Music for Ugly Children, which I did not like very much. I do want to do a transbook review on it. I just need to write out a few more of my thoughts and organize my bookmarks because I covered that thing in sticky notes, and I gotta rework them, maybe color code them just to figure out where I need to flip to things. After that, I finished I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness. This is a relatively short memoir type book. I do really enjoy memoirs, especially ones that kind of take the Black feminist stance of the personal as political and kind of interlace politics with the writing. Right before I did this challenge, I read Saigon by Phuc Tran, and I really enjoyed that. That's a good memoir, but at this point, I have read quite a few books on race, which I think is a good thing, and I've learned a lot about it in the past year or so. So nothing in this book was particularly, like, shocking to me, but I do like memoirs, and it's always good to read another person's experience, and it's a good way, I think, of broadening your horizons, and you should read more memoirs, probably. After that, I read the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I thought it was alright. I talked quite a bit about it in the vlog, so I'm gonna be pretty brief here. I still think a white man author writing tensions between Black women and white women and women and men can be difficult, and don't think he did it entirely perfectly, but I enjoyed the plot a lot, even if the characters were not my favorite. And finally, I also finished The End of Policing by Alexis Vitale. Again, I talked a lot about this book in my vlog as I read it. I think it's a good intro, it's well researched, it's very concise, it's well put together. The critiques in it of policing are consistently good, but for me, the alternatives to policing are inconsistently good, let's say. As I mentioned wanting to do earlier in this video, earlier this morning, I did watch the video between ForHarriet and Alex Vitale. It was interesting. It further reinforced my position on the book that, like, it's good and it's a great intro, but if you are already, like, far left and you're already for police and prison abolition, it's probably not something you need to read, but it's a good resource for beginners. It's got a lot of good references in it, and you might get something out of it even if you think you're already past it. While I do think it had some misses on the finer points, overall it was well done and well researched, and I'm glad that I did read it. I also am a bit over a third of the way done with the shock doctrine, but it'd be kind of silly to give my thoughts on that because I'm not finished with it. Anyways, so my thoughts on this week, on taking a whole week off from social media, filling all of that free time with reading. I think the thing that I missed the most was YouTube. I do watch quite a bit of YouTube. I'm gonna have some major catching up to do this week, I think. But I do think it was healthy for me to take a break. Sometimes I find myself like running out of content that I would usually watch and then like searching for things or scrolling through the recommendations endlessly. You know, maybe next time when I run out of content, I'll just read instead of searching for more content. That would be a good change, I think, in my life. Also, doing this whole week, it made me realize that a part of what I enjoy about reading is sharing what I read and discussing things surrounding what I read. A lot of what I enjoy about reading is sharing that enjoyment of reading, whether it's with you guys or with my friends. Only multiple times I found myself being like, oh, I want to post an Instagram story on this and see if anyone else has read it, or, oh, I want to tweet about this, and I didn't, you know? So that took some willpower. I do, of course, enjoy reading on its own, but so many times I found myself craving discussion about the books, and I think that's something that social media is valuable for. Another note that I wrote down is that I'm a little bit mad at myself for not reading Carmilla, because that would have made it 7 books throughout this week, and 7 books in 7 days is very good. However, I still read 3 times the amount that I normally would in a week recently, so I'm still proud of myself, not gonna beat myself up for it. But looking back at it, I read The End of Policing in 1 day, and as an ebook on my computer, it was about 400 pages. Carmilla, in the same size text, is about 200 pages. Why didn't I just knock out Carmilla on like Friday? I could have read that whole thing in a day, and maybe that's what I'll do tomorrow. Something that I knew, but this week definitely reinforced for me, was that sometimes you do have to like limit yourself on books. For me this week, that book was The Shock Doctrine. You know, I got through Dune faster than I thought I would. I got through Southern Book Club's Guide pretty quickly. I got through Lenin's Imperialism really quickly, but The Shock Doctrine, is heavy. It's dense, it's thick, it's heavily researched, it's got so much information in it, and for me, reading books like that can be pretty difficult. I'm not a big history person, and The Shock Doctrine is definitely very history-centric, which is good, and I am learning a lot, but it's okay to not force myself to read it as quickly as I would other books because it takes me longer to process, and that's all right. You're allowed to limit yourself. You're allowed to say, I'm just going to read one chapter of this today. You're allowed to say, I'm going to read one page of this today. It's okay to read super slowly. If you take a week off social media like I did and you don't even finish one book, that's still valuable. The pace that you read doesn't matter as long as you're learning and as long as you're enjoying what you read and what you learn. I really don't want this video to come off as me being like, I read this many books this week, how many books did you read this week? Phone bad, book good, that type of thing. I don't want to say that because phone good and book good, you know? It does feel a bit weird being off the social media when it's been a part of your life for so long. But I would encourage you to try it. If you missed the genesis of a new meme like I did, I logged back onto Twitter and I kept seeing this type of person will say, I know a place and then take you to blank. I kept seeing that meme and I was like, where did this come from? This is so sudden. And that's all right. I didn't get it at first. That's fine. It's not the end of the world. So if you want to try something like this, I would recommend going for it. It's not going to hurt you. Just think about your relationship with social media and do you want to cut it out for a week or 3 days, 5 days, just a couple hours? If this video made you consider it, I would highly recommend doing it. But take your time. Do it at your own pace. Figure out what works for you. I'm hoping to carry on some of the habits that I made this week throughout the rest of, I don't know, my life or this summer. Making a habit out of reading before bed has been really good for me, except for horrors late at night. I should read political philosophy at night. That's what I should do because that puts me to sleep a lot easier than a thriller book. That's all my thoughts. That's the vlog from this whole entire week. I hope that you learned something along with me. Goodbye, comrades. Remember to take care of yourself, whether that means quitting social media for a week and reading a shit ton, or reading a shit ton and being on social media for a week. I can't stop you, and you shouldn't stop yourself either, and I will talk to you later, maybe.